Congressman's here. Steve, thank you for joining us, Congressman. Steve, rather than telling us what you think, I'll give you an opportunity to ask the Congressman the first question, then Natalie, and then members of the community for as long as the Congressman has to be with us. So, Congressman, thank you. Steve.
Well, I ask you, good to see you, Congressman.
Yeah.
I guess my first question is what Natalie said. I've always been an advocate, as have you, of full transparency. I think we all seem to be in agreement here that full transparency was what was necessary, and that's why, unfortunately, you had to pass a bill. They didn't do it before you passed a bill. But having seen what you've seen since the materials come out, and since you've gone over there on your own. What do you think is driving the redactions that they're doing, and what can we do to like get to a next step on this process?
I didn't expect to be talking about this story in 2026. I thought we passed the law in 2025. They'd released the files. I care about jobs and the economy and AI, and that's what I expected to be doing. And yet I'm there like a first-year law associate in a room with four computers, putting in Bates numbers, trying to figure out these documents. I mean, it just has been mishandled, regardless of what you think about it. My view is that they did do a significant release of the files. I mean, let's be clear. They released a lot of the emails. They released a lot of the documents. The problem is that the documents that people most want are ones where survivors talk to the FBI, and those have been redacted, and those were given to the Department of Justice already redacted. And that's 70 to 80% of the files. They need to unredact those, and they need to release them. Now, one other point, some of the redactions are legitimate. Some of the most sensational emails out there are emails, where you read about 10-year-old girl or others where they've redacted. And some of those are actually survivors who may also have been complicit. And so people shouldn't just assume because it's redacted, it's illegitimate. Some of the redactions were legitimate. It's the FBI redactions that are not legitimate. One final point, and then I'll get to all the questions. I think it's very important that we distinguish between destroying the reputation of every single person who's in the file, who may have sent an email. I'm not for that. I'm not for a witch hunt. What I want to know is who actually went to the island and actually did terrible things, and how can they be held accountable? Not that every single person who's ever mentioned in the file should have some kind of witch hunt.
Natalie.
Just to drill down a bit on the motives, I'm curious how you would sort of parse out, though not mutually exclusive, a lot of the redactions coming more from wanting to protect people who are powerful, who are obviously linked to the Trump administration, or the fact that there could be some IC ties or foreign government ties to Epstein. Is that part of the redaction calculus here, or do you think it's more a personnel aspect?
There are three different things. So first of all, Congress can't compel the declassification of information. So our law actually exempts information that is deeply classified. Some people were upset that our law did that. I said, no one in Congress is going to pass a law saying that declassify things. It's just not how it works. I do believe that the president should appoint a commission to understand what happened with Epstein, who he was, whether there were any ties to our intelligence or others, and then have a report that is issued by someone who has credibility. I have not engaged in just conspiracy theories, but I fundamentally believe that they're unanswered questions, and that should be answered. It won't be answered by my law or Massey's law. The law does not apply to classified information. That has to be a separate thing that the president does. In terms of what was redacted, some of the redactions are legitimate to protect survivors, but the places, one, they were careless in not having all the men that should be out there. I mean, Massey and I in 2 hours discovered 6 people, which justice acknowledged should have been out there, and they had incorrectly redacted. But the biggest issue is that in March, the FBI went through and redacted all these things, and those need to be unscrubbed. Now, you can disagree with Massey and me. You can say, well, it's an investigation. There are a lot of, those FBI statements have a lot of untruths. There could be hearsay in them. They're implicating reputations of people who weren't charged. We shouldn't be releasing those. And guess what? The time to make those arguments was in the United States Congress or the United States Senate. But it passed in Massey's law, 427 to 1 and 100 to 0. So you don't get to just disregard the law off the land. President Trump signed it. He could have vetoed it if he had those concerns. Now it's the law. The law clearly says that the FBI needs to unredact the files. Your subjective wishes about whether you think that's just or not are totally irrelevant. In America, you comply with the law, and they're not complying with the law.
Okay, I've got questions, but I'm going to hold them and I'll ask another time. Michael, welcome in. Unmute, tell folks where you are and what's your question for Congressman Khanna.
Yes, hi, thanks for having me on. I'm calling in from Manhattan, and I do want to thank you, Congressman, for your push here on transparency. I think it's a really big deal in our country. I'm just curious, what made you get interested in this topic? Because I checked on Grok, I ran all of your tweets through Grok this afternoon, and you didn't tweet once about Epstein from 2021 through 2025 during the Biden administration. So I'm just curious, this came into focus for you last year. Why was that?
Thank you, Michael.
So first of all, it's a very fair question. In 2019, I did tweet out with Elijah Cummings about the Epstein issue, but it was not an issue on the forefront. And what happened is that as I went on candidly on the podcast circuit and in these communities, I started hearing people talking about Epstein. And when Massey and I initially did it, that we should get the files, we actually thought that Trump or others may support it, that there was something that was going to happen. And then I got to meet the survivors, and it became personal for me in a way that it wasn't years ago. And I have said that this is not just a failure of the Trump administration. This is a failure of administration since 1996. And it's not like I'm some silver knight coming in and on the moral high ground. What I've said is that it became real to me after I met these survivors, and that's what made me passionate. That's what made Massey's passionate. But now we have people who are working to rectify a wrong that's happened for decades, and we should do that. And it's not about scoring political points. It's about having justice for these survivors and exposing an Epstein class.
Michael, thank you. Wally, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for the congressman.
Thanks for calling on me. I'm calling from Southern California. I think I had a different question originally for Congressman Khanna, but with his little statement he gave earlier, I wanted to ask him a specific question. You just said now that you were talking about the law that was passed and how the law people may not like how it was drafted, but the law is the law, and we have to comply with the law of the land. That bothers me from the standpoint. It seems like the party you represent is so antithetical to the immigration laws, and right now, at least that's my opinion. I'm just wondering if you can answer that, because it seems like your party is pushing for basically not enforcing the immigration laws.
Well, I'm just going to interrupt you because we're trying to keep on Epstein. I understand you're making a metaphor, but go ahead.
20-second summary. Yeah. I think what most Americans are is they believe that the border should be secure. We didn't do a good enough job of securing that border in the previous administration. Many Democrats have acknowledged that, but they don't want to see ICE agents going around harassing American citizens, nor do they want people to be abused the way they are if they're here undocumented, paying taxes and law-abiding. They want to go after the criminals. I think that's an 80% position, and neither party has really succeeded in getting it right.
Mark Ackerman, question for Congressman Khanna.
Good afternoon, Congressman. Thank you for your time today. One thing I'm really curious about is, are we ever going to get to see the batch of suspicious activity reports that the Treasury Department is still holding? There's like 1,000 of them.
That's a great question. Some of that should be released under our law. It hasn't been. Ron Wyden has been terrific at investigating that, and I know his committee is working on doing that. And there are questions of these financial issues. I mean, the thing in England that is really implicated Mendelsohn is this idea, allegedly, that he gave a tip to Epstein about what UK was going to do in buying euros. And that's a undercovered part of this whole story.
Congressman, so have any of those financial reports been released, or we haven't seen any of them?
I have not seen any of them. To my knowledge, they have not.
Okay. And is there any basis to say they'd be exempt under your law?
I don't think so. I can go back. I like to speak precisely, so I don't think so, but I'll confirm afterwards if I'm incorrect on that. Okay. But my understanding is the law covers it.
Yeah. Okay, Matthew Bartlett.
Hey, Congressman, you are just, a remarkable figure, something of a progressive maverick. Just hats off to you. You've also been called New Hampshire's third congressman. I know you spent a lot of time there. There's a legendary business figure, a tech guy you may even know, Dean Kamen. He is
Yeah,
all over the files.
yeah.
Politico has a massive story out today about his ties to politics nationally and in New Hampshire. Is there anything you can say about Dean Kamen, who's either been wrongfully accused, or is there anything nefarious that you've seen? Again, this is just a massive story. You may know the guy. So many people do. And it's certainly making waves, again, nationally and in New Hampshire.
And for those who don't know him, he's, amongst other things, the founder of the Segway.
Yeah, I met him once. I think he funded robotics programs around the country, and I've met him. I haven't followed the details. I mean, people think because Massey and I wrote the law, we know all the cases of every single person. But I would just say that when we did this, we didn't care if it was going to hurt Democrats. We didn't care if it was going to hurt Republicans. We didn't care whether it was going to be a Democratic donor. And there should be accountability, and he should come clean in what he knows and what information there is. And if there's something innocent, then he should explain it, but there needs to be transparency, and Democrats need to call for transparency, even when it's one of the people who support us. And I've tried to be consistent about that.
Matthew, thank you. Congressman, before you go, just lay out what's coming up ahead. You've asked the Justice Department to unredact the FBI's redactions, but how will this play out? Will you be going back to read more documents? Will more be unredacted? How will this work now?
Look, I can go back, Massey may go back, but having members of Congress go back is like going through an ocean, and saying here are a few more names is not the way to solve this. The way to solve this is for us to approach the FBI. We're going to give the FBI another chance to say, okay, here's what we need to do to give the unredacted files. Massey and I are thinking about what the approach is to the FBI. Of course, Massey will get to question Pam Bondi tomorrow at the hearing. I'm not on that committee, but he will get to ask this. So my hope is that the FBI will comply. And you say, well, why do you think they're going to comply? The administration, of all the issues, Mark, and maybe you would validate this, of all the issues, this is the one issue where they've actually been listening to Congress. They've signed a law against their will. They've disclosed more documents than they ever thought they will. They even are agreeing with Massey and me on the 6 names that they are now releasing. So there is a chance that this pressure will get them to do the right thing. If not, there are the courts that we can go to and intervene, and the survivors can intervene. My view on all of this is this is not helping Donald Trump. And it's not helping Donald Trump not because of people speculating about his place in the files. It's not helping him because every day that there is not information released and it's drip by drip by drip, this stays in the headlines. And for the life of me, I don't understand why he doesn't just tell his team, get it out there, get it over with, let's move on. He wants to move on, get the documents out there. That's how he moves on.
Congressman, grateful to you for making time for a two-way community, answer some questions for folks, and look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.